and here present in Strasbourg, Mr. Илья Pономарев. He was a member of State Duma, and in 2014 he voted as the only member of Duma against the annexation of Crimea. And then he was forced to leave Russia. Mr. Pономарев, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for having me here. And let me say a few words about how we in the Russian opposition take this war. We think it's a very common mistake to say that it's a war between Ukraine and Russia. I think it's a war between global anti-Putin coalition, what Alexei Arestovich was just saying, and the new evil, the new fascism that reincarnated in modern-day Russia and led by Vladimir Putin. And in this situation, you cannot stay neutral. You cannot say that it's not my war. You cannot say that it's Ukrainians who should take the fight and we just help them. No, this is something that we cannot stay aside. And that is something that Eastern Europeans and Baltic states, they understand very well, but unfortunately not so well in the rest of the world. Another thing to say is that many people hope that the situation would change by itself. And in a sense, they're right. Putin's regime, historically, is doomed. It was built from the very beginning as a Bonapartist regime, which is dependent on one particular individual, and when this individual is gone, the whole system would shamble and would be destroyed. But whether the new regime would be better than this one, I highly, highly doubt. Ukraine can win this war, and we see it on the field of battle, how Ukrainian army is advancing, and we see that so much feared the second largest army in the world is actually retreating and cannot put the fight. But what is the end of the war? The liberation of Ukrainian territory? I agree that the risks which right now exist with the application of the nuclear weapons are quite high. And what would be the toll of just liberating Ukrainian territory? And what would be the outcome? We in Russia, we already saw the situation when, for example, Chechens managed to win the first Chechen war and managed to force, that time, Boris Yeltsin to sign a peace treaty with them. So what, 3 years have passed and the situation returned to where it was, and the new war has started. And I am fully convinced if the end of this war would not be the destruction of the very system that started this war, it would continue again and again and again. That's why deimperialization, decolonization, and demilitarization of Russia is a must that needs to be the very top of our agenda today. And what I unfortunately see all the time is that when we are talking with the representatives of the West, we're always thinking about very tactical things. What kind of weapons needs to be delivered to Ukraine now? What kind of financial assistance needs to be dealt with? But so far, there is no vision of what would be the world after this madness will end. And that's a very important thing because it leaves a lot of room for Russian propaganda to speculate about what does the West want at the end of the day. There are even military-related questions where we don't have the answers. For example, what is our vision about the nuclear weapons on the former post-Soviet space? But also there are many other matters like whether we would like Russia to stay united or be separated with all the national republics and people who are living in modern-day Russia. This is something that we need to discuss together because we need to get our position synchronized. And in general, I am very much calling for a proactive approach, not reactive one that we are taking at this very moment. Again, coming to this analogy of a global anti-Hitler coalition of today, anti-Putin coalition that we have right now, we need our own de Gaulle inside this coalition. We need to partner with the forces in Russia who are ready to liberate the country and who are ready to present a real alternative. I think that the obvious lead in this coalition should belong to Ukraine, because Ukraine is in the front lines of fighting. But it's also our common cause. It's our common deed. It should be our common vision, and it should be our common victory at the end of the day. The strategy that we can implement is based on three major pillars. Firstly, we need to achieve the split within Russian elites, because at no place in time, no revolution ever happened, at least in Russia, without having at least part of the elites supporting the change. And to achieve this split, we have two instruments that can and should be applied. Firstly, it's the instrument of sanctions, but they would be effective when there is not just the way in, but also the way out. Because sanctions are not the punishments. Sanctions is the policy tool. Sanctions is something that we are telling Russian business people and state bureaucrats that we want you to do this and that, and that's your way out if you follow the path of normal behavior that those who apply the sanctions want them to take. And secondly, it's the construction of alternative legitimacy. Also Russian elites and as well as the Russian ordinary people, they should understand the answer to a very simple question. If not Putin, then whom? And then what? What is the overarching dream of the perfect Russia of tomorrow? What should we have when Putin is gone? And without having this alternative legitimacy and the alternative vision, no changes are even theoretically possible. Nobody wants to jump into the unknown. The second pillar is the construction of the resistance movement inside Russia itself. And it also consists of two parts. Is what is growing right now in Russia, and I highly encourage you to watch closely this process, is the partisan movement. Right now, every single day something is happening. There are attacks on the military recruiting posts. There are acts of railroad sabotage. There are attacks on the pro-war activists. Every single day something is happening. And it's a very genuine grassroots movement. So I fully agree with my colleagues that were speaking before me. When we deny Russian people the very ability to take the action, it's not fair. They do take the action. The new generation of youngsters, the new generation of fighters is coming. They don't see the Russian opposition of yesterday, and they take it as important and incapable of achieving the results, but they do want to take the action by themselves. And they are courage enough to risk their lives with it. We already twice lost people inside Russia, killed by FSB officers. There was a group of two that was assassinated in August in Volgograd, and just 2 days ago there was another group of ours that was assassinated in Kabardino-Balkariyi and Northern Caucasus. But more and more people are coming every day to take the fight. And also it's the information warfare. We speak a lot, really a lot with Western representatives about how we should speak with Russians, delivering them the truth. We have created one media channel in Kiev, which is called Утро февраля, February's morning, which is speaking with Russians. We now have a lot of Russian language media which are speaking with Russians which left Russia. But those who are speaking with Russians who stayed in Russia, and I totally in solidarity with the position of those European states who don't want to encourage immigration from Russia, who want to encourage Russians to stay in Russia and take the fight. But we also need the tools to speak with them and support those tools. Just look at the very recent example of protests in Dagestan that were coordinated through our media channel, which turned it right now to be the main protest resource in Northern Caucasus. That says that this tool is the right thing how the fight should be taken. And the very last pillar, the third one, is emergence of Russian troops inside Ukraine which are fighting alongside with the Ukrainian army. When I was speaking about the Great Coalition, I don't know how much you are aware of it, but right now in the Ukrainian army there are national divisions of a lot of different nations and people. There are Chechens, there are Dagestanis, there are Crimean Tatars, there are Belarusians, and also there are Russians. From very first day of war, which started not in 2022, which started in 2014, from the very first days of war, there are several thousand Russians who are fighting alongside with Ukrainians. And they are fighting within different volunteer groups, and they spill their blood. And there are many people, unfortunately, who died already at the fields of the war. Currently, our estimate that in Ukraine, it's approximately 4,000 Russian people who are fighting within the Ukrainian army. And we have a huge line of people who want to join. Just before the mobilization started, only Legion of Free Russia, who is right now the main center of Russians who are fighting in the Ukrainian army, had more than 3,000 people in line who applied to join the ranks of the Legion to move into Ukraine and to take the weapons and confront Putin. After the mobilization was announced, this number, as of last week, it was already doubled. As of this week, I'm pretty sure it would be triple as much as it was before. And that's the key thing, because we will not be able to liberate Moscow without having troops on the ground. And Ukrainians would not invade Russia. NATO forces would never invade Russia. It should be Russians. It's our job. And I want to assure you that there are Russians who are ready to do this. Thank you.